Marcus Reed lived alone on a small ranch at the edge of a quiet town. His house stood far from the neighbors, surrounded by open land, long fences, and a narrow road that curved like a dark ribbon in the night. Life on the ranch was peaceful. Birds in the morning, warm sunsets in the evening, and nothing louder than the wind blowing through the fields. But everything changed one cold night. Marcus was sitting inside his living room, drinking hot tea and listening to the soft ticking of the clock. The night felt normal, till a sharp, heavy sound broke the silence. Bang! The noise shook the still air. Marcus stood up fast. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't an animal. It sounded like metal crashing against something solid. He stepped outside with a flashlight, the cold air touching his skin. The road was empty and silent again, but one thing was clear: the mailbox in front of his ranch was gone. Not broken, not bent. Completely smashed into pieces. Marcus frowned. Not again, he whispered to himself. This wasn't the first time his mailbox had been destroyed. It had happened before 3 times in the same month. Once could be an accident. Twice maybe, but 4 times. Something was wrong. He walked down the driveway and looked closely at the ground. Tire marks. Long, deep tire marks that went straight into the mailbox area and then swerved back onto the road. The strange thing, the tire marks looked familiar. They were from a large vehicle, wheels wider than a normal car. The tread pattern was official looking, strong, heavy. For a moment, Marcus thought of something crazy, something he didn't want to believe. Could it be the police? He shook his head. No, that doesn't make sense, he said softly. Why would cops run over a mailbox? Still, the idea stayed in his mind like a shadow. The next night, Marcus installed a small camera near the fence. Nothing fancy, just enough to record the road. He wanted answers. He wanted to know who kept destroying his property. 2 days passed. Quiet, no crashing, no strange sounds. Maybe the problem was gone, he thought. But on the 3rd night, the ranch fell silent again. The sky was dark with clouds. The moon was hidden. Marcus sat in his kitchen, listening, waiting. And then it happened. Crash. A louder sound than before. Sharp, violent. Quick, Marcus grabbed his jacket and ran outside. Dust was still settling in the air. Bits of broken mailbox lay across the dirt like scattered bones. His new mailbox, installed only yesterday, was crushed flat. His heart started beating faster. He went inside, grabbed the camera, and checked the footage with shaky hands. The video played. A pair of headlights appeared. The vehicle moved fast. Too fast for a country road, and then the camera caught it, clear as day. A police cruiser. A real police cruiser, white, with blue stripes, driving straight into the mailbox without slowing down. No brake lights. No hesitation. No attempt to avoid it. Marcus rewound the video again and again, stared in disbelief. Why would a cop car destroy his mailbox? Why? Multiple times. Was it intentional? A joke? Or something darker? He felt a mix of anger and confusion. He called the local station and explained everything, but the officer on the phone sounded bored. Probably an accident, the officer said. Nothing we can do. Marcus tried again. It has happened 4 times. I have video, sir, if you want to file a report. Come in tomorrow morning. Click. The call ended. Marcus stood alone in his kitchen, the phone still in his hand. No one cared. No one listened. And the mailbox would be hit again. That night, Marcus didn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the dark road outside his ranch. Something inside him changed, something cold and determined. If the police kept running over his mailbox, then he would give them something they never saw coming. A small smile appeared on his face. Let's see who wins this time, he whispered. The suspense began. Marcus woke up the next morning with a heavy mind. The video of the police cruiser smashing his mailbox played again and again in his thoughts. The sound of the crash echoed inside his head like an unfinished sentence. He walked outside to look at the destroyed mailbox once more. The cold morning air felt sharper than usual, as if the world itself was telling him something was wrong. He stood by the road and stared at the tire marks. They were still fresh, carved deep into the dirt like scars. The marks didn't look accidental at all. They were too straight to direct, as if the driver had aimed for the mailbox on purpose. Why would they do this? Marcus whispered to himself. He tried to make sense of it. Maybe the officer was sleepy. Maybe he wasn't paying attention. Maybe the road was dark. But then a strange thought came to his mind. Why only his mailbox? The road had other ranches, other houses, other mailboxes, but none of them were ever hit. Only Marcus's. Every time. He walked to the neighbor's field, where Mr. Lewis was fixing a fence post. Lewis was old, with silver hair and a hat that looked older than him.
Marcus
decided to ask. "Morning, Lewis," Marcus said. "Morning, son. You look worried," the old man replied. "Someone ran over my mailbox again." Lewis sighed. "That road has become strange. At night, cars drive too fast. Do cops do it too?" Marcus asked carefully. Lewis looked up slowly. "I've seen their cruisers speeding here late at night, but they never hit mine. Only yours, son." "Okay." Marcus felt a chill in his chest. It wasn't his imagination. It wasn't an accident. Something was happening, and he had no idea why. He returned home, replaying the camera footage on his laptop. He zoomed in on the police cruiser. The headlights, the roof lights, the bumper, the number on the side. Every detail. The car hit the mailbox like it didn't even exist. No slowing down. No hesitation. A thought crossed his mind. Something he hadn't considered before. Was someone inside the police department messing with him? Did he unknowingly make someone angry? He tried to remember. Last week he had spoken to an officer about noise in the area. A month before that, he had reported a suspicious car near his ranch. Maybe someone didn't like being questioned. Maybe someone thought he'd complained too much. He didn't know, but he needed answers. Later that day, he decided to visit the local sheriff's office. When he arrived, the officer at the front desk asked, "How can I help you?" "My mailbox keeps getting destroyed," Marcus said. "Think it's your patrol car. I have video." The officer gave him a blank look, like he had heard too many complaints already. "Sir, many people think they have video proof. It's probably a delivery truck or a drunk driver." Marcus pulled out his phone. "No, it's clear. A police cruiser. Your cruiser." The officer sighed. "Okay, leave the footage. We'll look into it." But his voice didn't sound serious. He didn't even ask Marcus for his contact number. He didn't write anything down. Didn't show any interest. Marcus realized something. They didn't want to deal with his problem. Maybe they wanted to avoid trouble. Maybe they wanted to protect their own. He left the station with frustration burning inside him as the sun set. Marcus sat on his porch watching the long road again. Felt powerless, but at the same time, a spark of determination grew inside him. If the law wouldn't help, he had to protect his property himself. A plan began forming in his mind. A strong plan. A quiet plan. A plan he would execute alone. He looked at the broken mailbox one last time. "Accident or target?" he whispered. "I'm done losing." The night winds carried his words into the darkness. And in that darkness, Marcus decided something important. If they wanted to keep hitting his mailbox, then he would build one they could never break. Marcus spent the next morning in silence, sitting at his kitchen table with a notebook in front of him. He turned the pages slowly, as if searching for something he had not yet written. His mind replayed every crash, every broken mailbox, every careless answer from the police station. The memories felt like small sparks pushing him toward one decision. He needed a new mailbox. But not just any mailbox. He needed something strong, something unbreakable, something that would send a message without him saying a single word. He tapped his pen on the table, thinking, "What can survive a police cruiser?" He whispered. He looked out the window at the empty spot where the mailbox should have been. Only broken wood and bent metal remained. It was almost funny he had spent more money replacing mailboxes in 2 months than he spent on groceries. Every time he bought a new one, he hoped it would last. And every time it lasted only a few days. Not this time. This time, he wanted a mailbox that wouldn't move. A mailbox that would fight back. He began sketching ideas in his notebook. Simple drawings at first. A thick wooden post. A steel pole. A concrete base. Then more complex shapes. Reinforced frames, heavy bolts, hidden supports underground. He wasn't an engineer, but he was determined. And determination has its own power as he drew. The idea grew stronger. He imagined a mailbox that looked normal from the outside. It's like any other mailbox in the neighborhood. But beneath the surface, it would be built like a tank. A mailbox that could take a hit and still stand strong. Marcus smiled for the first time in days. But he needed materials. Real materials. Strong materials, so he drove to town and stopped at a hardware store. The bell above the door rang softly as he walked in. A worker with a red cap approached him. "Need help finding anything?" the worker asked. "Yes," Marcus said. "I need something strong. Something that doesn't break." The worker laughed. "What are you trying to build? A bomb shelter? Something like that?" Marcus replied with a serious face. The worker raised an eyebrow but led him through the aisles. Marcus picked up thick steel pipes, heavy cement bags, long anchor bolts, and metal sheets. He lifted each item with care, imagining how everything would fit together. He wanted a mailbox so tough that even a cruiser hitting it at full speed would feel the pain when Marcus reached the counter. The worker stared at the pile of materials. "This is a lot for just a mailbox," the worker said. Marcus leaned in slightly, his voice calm but confident. "You'll understand when it's finished." The worker said nothing more. Marcus drove back home with the truck full of supplies. The sun was setting fast, the sky turning orange and red as the light spread across the fields. He parked near the road and unloaded everything quietly, stacking the materials near the fence. He walked back to the kitchen, sat down, and reviewed his drawings again. He marked important points with a thick pencil areas where the structure needed extra strength. He wanted no weak spots, no cracks, no part that could bend or break. He turned the page and wrote one sentence at the top. "Make it look normal. Make it built for war." That line became the heart of his plan. As night came, Marcus stood outside and looked at the empty ground near the road. The moonlight reflected off the steel pipes lying beside him. He took a deep breath, feeling a strange excitement inside. He was no longer angry. He was no longer frustrated. He was focused. He knew he couldn't confront the police directly. He knew filing reports wouldn't change anything. But building something stronger? That was something he could control, he whispered to himself. They won't see this coming. The wind blew softly across the ranch. As if listening, Marcus picked up a tool, walked toward the road, and started planning where the new mailbox would stand. It was time to turn his idea into something real, something powerful, something unforgettable. Marcus woke before sunrise the next day. The sky was still dark, and a soft mist covered the ranch fields like a thin blanket. He stood outside with a cup of hot coffee, staring at the empty ground where his mailbox used to be. Today was the day he would begin building the strongest mailbox the road had ever seen. A mailbox that wasn't just a mailbox, it was a silent message. He placed the coffee cup on the fence, rolled up his sleeves, and walked toward the stack of heavy materials he brought home yesterday. The steel pipes felt cold in his hands. The cement bags were covered in light dust. Everything looked ready. Everything felt right. Marcus grabbed a shovel and began digging a deep hole. He worked slowly and carefully, removing dirt until sweat ran down his forehead. The ground here was tough, packed from years of weather and passing vehicles. But he didn't plan on giving up. The hole needed to be deep enough to anchor the base like a rooted tree. While digging, he paused several times to look at the quiet road. No cars, no police cruisers. Only the wind moving through the grass. The silence made him more determined. He wasn't building this out of fear. He was building it because he was done being ignored, done losing his property every week. When the hole was deep enough, he lowered a thick steel post inside. It was heavy, too heavy for most people to lift alone. But Marcus pushed it into the hole with slow strength, making sure it stood straight like a soldier at attention. He packed gravel around the base, then mixed cement in a wheelbarrow. The smell of wet concrete filled the air. As he poured the cement around the steel post, he smiled slightly. "No car is breaking this," he said softly. He let the cement settle and moved on to the upper part of the mailbox. He took a large steel pipe and welded it to the post. Sparks flew like tiny fireflies in the early morning light. His gloves got warm from the heat, but his hands stayed steady. He shaped the metal slowly, carefully, making sure every weld was tight and strong. Then came the metal sheet. He bent it perfectly to give the mailbox its normal shape. From the outside, it would look simple, just like every other mailbox in the neighborhood. But inside, it was all steel. Solid, thick, heavy, a hidden wall of protection to make it even stronger. He added a second layer of metal inside the box. This layer wasn't visible at all. Anyone looking from the road would think it was just a regular mailbox. But the truth was, it weighed more than a small safe. Marcus stepped back and admired his work. It looked perfect, but he wasn't done yet. He walked to his shed and returned with a long bolt thicker than any used in normal mailboxes. He secured the mailbox to the steel post using 2 giant bolts, each one tightened with a power tool. The sound echoed across the ranch like a warning. He tested the mailbox by pushing it hard from different angles. It didn't move, not even an inch. It felt like part of the earth, something rooted too deep to be disturbed. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked proudly at the result. "It's ready," he whispered. But Marcus wasn't only thinking about protection. He wanted proof. So he climbed a ladder and adjusted the hidden camera above the fence. He aimed it directly at the mailbox and the road. Every angle was covered. If someone hit it again, the camera would record everything every second. Every moment. As the sun rose higher, his mailbox stood tall, shining with quiet strength. A normal person would never guess what was inside it. Even a trained officer wouldn't see anything unusual. That was the beauty of it. Marcus walked back to his porch, sat in a chair, and waited. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't scared. He felt calm in a way he hadn't felt for weeks, because now the game had changed, and whatever came down that road next would meet the mailbox they never saw coming. The night arrived slowly, like a long shadow stretching across the ranch. Marcus sat inside his living room with the lights off, only the glow of the small security monitor lighting his face. The new mailbox stood outside in the darkness, quiet and strong, waiting like a silent guard. Marcus had built it with his own hands. Tonight he would see if it was truly unbreakable. The road outside the ranch looked empty and harmless, but Marcus knew better. Nights on this road were unpredictable. Strange things happened when the world was sleeping. He checked the time. 11:47 p.m., this was usually when the crashes happened. He leaned closer to the monitor, watching the black and white footage of the mailbox. The wind blew lightly across the camera, making the grass move like waves. Minutes passed. The silence began to feel heavy. Every small sound inside the house made Marcus jump a little, the creak of a chair, the ticking of the clock, even his own breathing. He wasn't scared, but he was alert. Tonight mattered. At 12:06 a.m., a faint light appeared at the far end of the road. Marcus froze. Headlights, they were still far away, but moving fast. Too fast for a rural road at midnight. Marcus's heart started beating louder. He leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. The lights grew brighter, bigger, closer. The shape of a vehicle slowly formed in the darkness. A white hood. A roof light bar. Blue stripes on the side. A police cruiser. It was happening again. The cruiser approached the ranch, like it had done so many times before, speeding with confidence, as if nothing in its path mattered. Marcus clenched his jaw. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The cruiser didn't slow down. It didn't swerve. It aimed straight for the mailbox dash again. Marcus whispered, "Do it. Hit it one more time." The cruiser reached the mailbox in seconds. Bam! A loud metallic crash blasted through the night, so strong that Marcus felt the vibration even inside the house. He jumped from his seat and ran to the window to look outside. Dust flew into the air. Pieces of light reflected on the road. Something had definitely happened, but not like before. Marcus rushed to the monitor again. The camera showed everything. The mailbox didn't move. Not even a little. It stood straight, solid, untouched exactly as he built it. The cruiser, however, was not so lucky. Its front bumper had crumpled inward like a crushed soda can. The hood bent upward. The headlights flickered wildly. Steam rose from the engine. Floating into the cold night air, the officer inside the car opened the door slowly, stumbling out in shock. He walked around the front of the cruiser with wide eyes, staring at the mailbox as if it were some kind of monster that had just fought back. Marcus watched him on the camera, a mix of anger and satisfaction rising inside him. Now they understood. Now they knew his mailbox was not a joke. The officer touched the mailbox gently, testing if it was loose. It didn't move at all. He stepped back, confused and frustrated. He looked around the road, as if hoping no one had seen what happened. But Marcus had seen everything, and the camera recorded every second. The officer pulled out his radio and spoke urgently. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but he could see the panic in the man's movements. Within minutes, another cruiser arrived. 2 officers stood beside the damaged car, pointing at the mailbox, shaking their heads. They looked nervous, embarrassed, angry. One officer kicked the ground. Another pointed a flashlight at the base. They didn't touch it again. Marcus stood by his window, watching from the shadows. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply breathed out slowly. Justice didn't always need noise. Sometimes it came quietly through steel, cement, and patience. The officers eventually left, towing the damaged cruiser behind them. The road became empty once more, silent except for the wind. Marcus walked outside, stood beside his untouched mailbox, and whispered, "Now you know I'm done playing." The night accepted his words, and the mailbox stood strong, victorious. Morning sunlight slowly crept across Marcus's ranch, touching the fields, the fence, and the one thing now stronger than everything else, the mailbox. It stood tall, solid, and silent, as if proudly guarding the land. The events from the night before still played in Marcus's mind like scenes from a movie. The crash, the panic, the officers staring in disbelief at something that refused to break. Marcus stepped outside with a cup of coffee in his hand. He walked toward the mailbox with calm, steady steps. When he reached it, he placed his hand on the cool metal surface. It felt smooth, unchanged, untouched, almost like it hadn't faced a full-speeding police cruiser just a few hours earlier. He whispered, "Good job." He didn't need the softness of wood anymore. He didn't need to keep replacing mailboxes. This time, he had built something that stood up for itself, something that protected what the law refused to protect. As he stood there, a truck drove by slowly. It wasn't a police cruiser, just a local farmer on his way out of town. The man leaned out the window and called, "Heard some noise last night? Everything all right, Marcus?" Marcus smiled. "Everything's fine now." The farmer nodded and continued down the road. It was strange news traveled fast in small towns. Even if they didn't know the full story yet, Marcus walked back to his porch and sat down. He opened his laptop and replayed the camera footage once more. Not because he needed proof, just because he wanted to remind himself that standing up, even silently, could make a difference. The video showed the cruiser racing forward. The moment of impact, the sudden stop, the officer stumbling out. Marcus paused the screen when the mailbox stood tall and untouched. It was a powerful image, one that felt like justice, even if unofficial. A soft smile grew on his face. Later that afternoon, his neighbor Louis came by fixing fence wire near the property line. He lifted his hat when he saw Marcus. Son Louis said, "I heard the cops were out here late last night." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Already heard it, huh?" "These ears may be old," Louis chuckled, "but they don't sleep." Marcus shrugged casually. "They hit my mailbox again," Louis chuckled. And this time, the mailbox hit back. Louis burst out laughing. "Good. About time someone taught them a lesson. They think they own every road around here." Marcus didn't confirm or deny anything else. He didn't need to. The broken cruiser, the confused officers, the quiet night, those details were for him alone. Louis went back to his fence, smiling to himself. As days passed, something strange happened. The road became quieter. No speeding. No unnecessary flashing lights. No late-night cruisers pretending they didn't see a mailbox. 1 week passed. Then 2. Not a single mailbox attack. In the 3rd week, Marcus noticed something amusing. Whenever a police cruiser passed his ranch now, it slowed down. Not just a little, a lot. Officers drove past with exaggerated caution, eyes forward, hands tight on the wheel, making sure to avoid even the slightest touch of his property. Marcus didn't want revenge. He just wanted respect, and now he had it. One afternoon, as he checked his mail, a cruiser drove by very slowly. The officer inside gave a small nod, half embarrassed, half respectful. Marcus returned a calm nod. No anger, no fear, just understanding. Nothing more needed to be said. Word eventually spread across town. Don't mess with Marcus Reed's mailbox.
How?
Some admired him. Some didn't believe it. But the truth stood right at the edge of the road, strong, silent, undefeated. The mailbox became a symbol, not of violence, not of revenge, but of quiet strength, of someone tired of being ignored, someone who refused to let injustice continue. On a peaceful evening, Marcus sat on his porch, watching the sunset. The sky glowed with orange and purple colors. The ranch looked calm again. Life felt normal, but stronger. More grounded, he took a deep breath and whispered, "Sometimes you don't need to fight people. Sometimes you just build something stronger than their nonsense." And the wind seemed to agree. Carrying his words across the fields, the mailbox stood there firm, unmovable, fearless, a reminder that even the quietest person can make the loudest statement. Without saying a word,